Good evening. This side Rahul Magan here as a Group Chief Executive Officer, Treasury Consulting, and also a second year law student. Today, I would be covering a very important topic pertaining to a concept which is known as tax havens and also known as corporate layering. There is hardly any doubt that the funds which are created in the countries like Hong Kong, Singapore, and many other tax havens, Mauritius, Caribbean island, British Virgin Islands, United Kingdom, Luxembourg, Frankfurt, they are having multi-layered funds. By multi-layer, I mean apparently it looks like a fund is registered in India. But having said that, there are various layers of the funds who are registered at multiple jurisdictions. By multiple jurisdictions, I mean maybe one part would be registered in Hong Kong, one would be registered in Delaware, United States, one would be registered in London, one would be registered in Mauritius, one would be registered in Cayman Island, one would be registered in British Virgin Islands, and so on and so forth. Apparently, it looks that the fund is operating from Singapore. We really need to understand that we are living in a times when the multiple jurisdictions is not a fantasy. By a fantasy, I mean to say that it is only in the books. Example, Alien. Alien is a fantasy because there are people who claim that they saw aliens. There are people on the internet who claim that they, having an encounter with an alien. But having said that, in the history of humanity, alien never came in the public domain. So it is more or less a fantasy. It may be a reality, but having said that, the public evidence is completely missing. Similarly, gone are the days when we used to have a structure whereby a fund used to register at one location. Now, a fund may be registered at one location, but certainly this fund is having multi-leg structure. People must be thinking that the fund is generally having 5 to 6 layers. Some people believe it is having 7 to 8 layers. Some believe it is more than 8 layers. But I tend to believe that the fund having more than 10 to 15 layers. The reason behind the logic behind 10 to 15 is the banking. We all understand that how American bank worked, especially when it comes to Goldman Sachs, JP Morgan, and few European banks like Credit Suisse, UBS, Citi, Morgan Stanley, and we all aware about their credentials. We all aware about the fact that there is hardly any scandal these banks not done with. But today I'm not going to be linking the fund structure with these banks. Rather, I would be linking something which is a very important concept, which is called correspondent structure. I repeat, correspondent structure. If you see this in the books, you will not get that. You know that I worked as a corporate treasurer for American companies for 10 years. And when you work as a corporate treasurer, you speak with the bank, you speak with the financial institution, you get so much of knowledge. And because you get so much of knowledge, you will get to know how exactly these things work. Ladies and gentlemen, correspondent structure is nothing but the face of the fund. Now, let me give a hypothetical example, and I am creating a hypothetical example. God forbid, if this example turn out to be a reality, then this is purely a coincidence. Suppose there is a fund which is called Ram Lal Chole Bhature Pte Limited. Now, PTE means Singapore. I repeat, Ram Lal Chole Bhature PTE Limited. This fund, which is created and titled as Ram Lal Chole Bhature, this fund is registered with MAS, which is Monetary Authority of Singapore. On paper, people are holding a perception that Monetary Authority of Singapore and Singapore is one of the most honest nations we are having. But the hard reality is that on an annual basis, the tax haven list is being published in the global media. That's a separate thing that no one bothers about this list, no one study this list. But the hard reality is that Singapore always in the top countries as far as this list is concerned. Now, having said that, if your name coming as a top country in the tax haven list, what does that mean? What do we assume that Monetary Authority of Singapore is not viewing this list? What do we assume? I'm shooting this video on 8th September 2023. Barely a week ago, I repeat, barely a week ago, a money laundering scandal erupted in Singapore. Barely a week ago. And according to the public information, the valuation of that scandal is approximately 1 billion US dollars. And we are not sure whether this is 1 billion, whether this is more than 1 billion, because effective 2008, I stopped believing in all the numbers which are provided by the government. Nonetheless, this Ram Lal Chole Bhature Fund apparently registered in Singapore and registered with Monetary Authority of Singapore, which is shortly known as MAS. But the hard reality is that this fund is having a BO structure. Now, BO structure means beneficial owner structure, BO structure in Hong Kong. And that BO structure is designed in such a way that it is coveted. Coveted means circumvented. It is circumvented by a trust. Majority of the people believe that funds are nothing but AMCs. By AMC, I mean asset management companies. But they do not know that funds is more than AMC. Majority of the funds in the world are via a trust, and that is a private trust. Because private trusts are hard to detect. As far as the disclosures are concerned, there is barely any disclosure about private trust. All the funds which are either controlled or managed by FPI, foreign portfolio investors, alternatively QIBs, qualified institutional buyers, these funds are having one standard designation, and the name of that designation is known as SMO. By SMO, I mean Senior Management Official. If you look at Google, you will get to know that there is a bare minimum information which is available as far as the SMO is concerned. Senior Management Official, bare minimum information. And do you know the reason why there is a bare minimum information? Being a hedge fund manager, I'm telling you, the bare minimum information is because the funds, the tax havens, both do not want the SMO, the Senior Management Official, to be defined. Because we need to understand and we need to appreciate that a tax haven is a place where people hide their money. A tax haven is a place where people create the layers. And it's a common sense that the tax haven do not want the SMO official should be there. So let me give you a simplistic example. There is a trading platform in India which is known as OctaFX. OctaFX is an illegal trading platform in India. And when I did my research on the OctaFX, I got to know that OctaFX is registered at a tax haven. And trust, I wrote more than 10 emails to that tax havens and none of the emails become bounced. It means that these emails are hitting the mailbox of some person who, by the way, is a natural person, who is a living person. But I got no reply. That clears my doubt that OctaFX is registered in a tax haven. This just raises a big question that why a trading platform is registered at a tax haven. The similar is the structure of the funds who are promulgated either by FPI, foreign portfolio investors, read with QIBs, which is qualified institutional buyers. These funds are of two kinds. They are either pooled vehicle or they are non-pooled vehicle. Apparently, the bookish definition is that they are pooled vehicle. But I believe that they are quasi-pooled vehicle. They are not completely pooled vehicle. Now, the closed vehicle, number one category, is a vehicle whereby only few selective individuals, I repeat, only few selective individuals can operate, or they have a per se, they have a control. Like in India, there is a concept called significant beneficial owner, 2018, rules under Ministry of Corporate Affairs, Companies Act 2013. Similarly, if I use this term, it means that they are the significant beneficial owners of that firm, right? SBO. Pooled vehicles are like collective investment schemes, which is shortly known as CIS, which practically is mentioned in the books, but technically speaking, it is not there. The reason being the compliance requirement of pooled investment vehicle is very high. And if a fund is designed with the multiple layers, like you are having a fund registered in Singapore, the layer is in Hong Kong, the layer is in Delaware, the layer is in Dubai, the layer is in Mauritius, Cayman Island, British Virgin Island, Caribbean Island, London, Luxembourg, Frankfurt. In this eventuality, the probability that this fund is acting as a collective investment scheme is absolutely zero. Now, how we going to be detect these funds? The only resolution of detecting this person is via an entity which is known as custodian. Because these funds cannot run away from a person whose name is custodian. Technically speaking, custodian is a person who do or who collate or who works as far as the corporate action on the securities which are bought up by these funds are concerned. This is what we are having the legal definition of a custodian, which means today the fund which I assumed Ram Lal Chole Bhature, when this fund buy any stock, then the custodian will manage the corporate action. This is what the custodian is. Simple. But having said that, the custodians are of two kinds. For a while, I ignore the asset class. For a while, I assume that all custodians are capable of handling all asset classes, which, by the way, is a very, very huge assumption because not all the custodians are designed to handle all asset classes. Example, we are having few custodians who are very good in equities. Without specifying any name, we are having few custodians who are very good in commodities. We are having few custodians who are very good in equity linked structures and so on and so forth. Henceforth, to say that the custodians are good in all asset classes, this is really a very big assumption which we are taking. Anyways, to me, custodians are bifurcated into two parts. Number one is FPI custodians. Number two is the non-FPI custodians. When I say FPI custodians, I mean to say they are those custodians who are actually designed to handle the corporate layering. They know that the fund, the client of them, is having a corporate layering. When I say non-FPI custodian, I mean to say they are further divided into two parts. One is the corporate custodian, and one is the retail investors. Generally, retail investors do not use custodians, they use the depository participant, which is also known as their DPs. Because having a custodian, the fees which they are charging, the legal formalities, this is something absolutely very, very high. Henceforth, most of the time, either corporates use the custodian or the FPI. More videos on the card. This side, Rahul Magan.